too surprising right here. Although it does look like we may end up with either the Gwen or that Rumble going through. Okay, Gwen does get taken out by Weibo.
Which is interesting because they're on the blue side, and I feel like Breathe would be more than happy to pick this one up. But it looks like they want to push it back and at least make BLG ban the Rumble away, unless they want to just give it over to Breathe and Weibo. Looks like the Pantheon's going to be the ban. So full jungle targets towards Tian. It looks like they're trying to focus out the jungle for Weibo's champion pool. Make sure that he is not comfortable. As what is happening here? A Nico locked in first. The Kalista still available, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that is not the way that I was expecting this draft to go.
Do you force the Kalista right here out of BLG? Because the way that that combo works is so strong. It gives you so much extra freedom right here as Erha to just go jumping in as the Nico, find that big pop blossom during the team fight, then you can get pulled back and don't have to worry so much about the survivability of your champion. It is going to be the Rumble. We're very much expecting that. Bin always likes to pick this one up whenever it manages to get through. If you don't take the Kalista here, you'd have to imagine that Weibo just going to slam that one through. The Nico's strong on its own anyway. We're seeing it banned individually a lot, but that pairing just takes it to that next level.
And Erha specifically has had some good games on this champion in the limited time that he's had here in the LPL so far. Again, replacing Hung on this Weibo team where they were really struggling at the opening of this Ascension stage, providing really a big source of engage, big source of almost leadership from such a young player. It's very surprising. Obviously, we can't tell who's calling the shots from behind the scenes here on the broadcast booth, but it really feels like the team felt like they had some bigger sense of direction ever since Erha has joined the team. Again, we're expecting that Kalista to come in and match alongside the Nico, although we could end up flexing around a little bit. Having the Kaisa lock in for Light signifies that things are going to get a little bit messy here for Weibo's draft.
Let's see if this is just going to be the full all-in kind of composition. I was wondering if we might see something like the Skarner. It pairs up well alongside the Nico. It could give you that second level of the engage that you're looking for. And the Kaisa, more than happy to play this kind of composition where you also go flying into the back line. And maybe slamming that Kalista this early on would have been a little bit risky. You would have left yourself open to either that Kaisa or something like the Misfortune that can bully it around during the laning phase a little bit coming through. Response right here, very standard League of Legends main picks for BLG. This is how most teams are drafting at the moment. They're going to grab themselves the Talia. The wall going to be pretty impactful in this game if you can cut off any potential engages out of Erha or Tian. But obviously you can kind of get through the walls in a lot of way with these champions. So what do you ban out? We're still needing ourselves our top laner for Weibo and probably a mid laner.
So now we're in our second phase of bans. Weibo looking for a top laner and a mid laner probably, unless that Nico goes into the mid lane. Whereas for BLG, they're looking straight up for a bot lane.
Yes.
Elk and On have, specifically Elk has been very consistent so far here for this BLG team. On has had some, moments, I think, so far throughout this first round robin. Elk, though, still playing very consistently. And so getting him a champion that he's comfortable on, there's a lot of different options that they could go with in terms of the direction of this composition. It's enough damage that something like a Jhin could work out well here for Elk, or you could go for more of that hyper carry, something like the Aphelios that he's done so well on throughout his career.
I very much like this Karma ban here from Weibo. You want to get rid of anything in the bot lane that can outrange you to just poke you out constantly. Wonder if they might get rid of something else like the Ezreal here. Would be a very safe pickup, like you said. There's already quite a lot of damage. You do need some decent follow-up as well. Or do we just want to get rid of some sort of support? There's plenty of those very engage-heavy supports still available. The Leona, the Alistar, the Rel, all of those up and available right here. Into this heavy dive composition, that does also open up things like the Seraphine or the Renata to possibly be picked.
We're really going down the tier list here in terms of those supports. Things like the Nautilus and the Leona still available for the taking, but I don't know if that necessarily is what BLG want to go with here, especially against the Nico. You're going to have that double range bot lane, I should say. Varus somehow making it all the way through into the second phase is rather surprising.
I'm so used to it being gone that I hadn't even really thought about the Varus.
I know, that's not us for not even noticing it, right?
Yeah. Usually that is the B1 pick if it goes through. BLG being able to pick themselves up both the Rumble and the Varus, very surprising. You don't usually get all of those champions. This is what I was talking about, the sort of composition that you can outrange with. I think this is also a decent position to go towards that poke Varus. You really don't want to be stepping too close to this Skarner, trying to deal your damage there. I would really like this. This gives you some decent frontline pairing alongside that Skarner. You're now going to need some heavy damage through the mid lane, though. Things like the Azir, the Victor, all of those are still available. They'd get left behind a little bit.
I was going to say, this is much more of a Xiaohu champion, I feel like. Even though the Galio into the Rumble is a classic matchup that we've seen a lot this season. I feel like giving Breeze something like the Ambessa makes sense, even though you might have a harder time in lane specifically. It'll allow for Xiaohu to fall around Knight with those semi-global ultimates. So that's going to be the choice here. The response for BLG will be the Nautilus locked in here for On. Provide a little bit more extra hard engage. I think overall BLG have set themselves up with a really nice composition that, you know, they can roam around the map a little bit with this mid jungle and get the side lanes ahead, which will allow them to win once we get into these mid-game fights.
This is a very standard this meta composition here out of BLG, whereas Weibo, they have thrown that all out, and I am a little bit worried about this comp, right? You are lacking in the damage department quite heavily. You are very reliant on Light being able to get ahead and being able to deal as much damage as possible on this Kai'Sa. Now, Kai'Sa has some great ceiling, some great flashy mechanics that you can go for as well with the ulti, but you're still a relatively short-ranged ADC that's going to have to step up quite far, and do you really want to be stepping up into a Xin Zhao, into a Rumble, into a Taliyah, all of those champions quite terrifying to try to deal with. Still, the front line could be very beefy for Weibo, so if you do have Light in a good spot, if him and Erha can kind of provide that overall damage for you together, then with your beefy boys, maybe you can buy them enough space to be able to do what they need to during the team fights. It's a big risk, though, out of Weibo.
These two teams, they met in the lower bracket of the playoffs in Split 1. They met, of course, in the World Championships. These teams have a lot of history with each other. Of course, it was Weibo who kind of surprised BLG back in 2023 to make it all the way to the World's Finals. Of course, a very different iteration of the roster than what we have now, but Xiaohu, a consistent on that team, and they're going up against BLG. Xiaohu and Knight, two of the legends here in the LPL in terms of mid lane greats. As we get prepared for this matchup between BLG and Weibo Gaming, the last one in the first round robin of Group Ascent here in the 2025 Split 2. Best of 3 to see who ends up with a winning record through it all, and who ends up with a little bit higher of a mountain to climb heading into the second half of the split.
Let's see it right here. Winning here, so incredibly important. Not only do you finish off your first round robin with a victory, but it pushes the other of this teams down one. You are currently very much scrapping just on the outside, looking in of those top 4 positions. Top 4 positions get a little bit of a break before they have to worry about moving on into those playoffs with a grueling 18 best of 3 season. You want that little bit of time to be able to breathe, watch the other teams go and compete up against the Group Nirvana squads, and then be able to get on into your playoffs. Right now, these are teams number 5 and 6, just on the very edge. Winning here, critical for keeping you in that race for the top 4 spots.
Yeah, and these are two teams that would have very much expected to be in the running for top 4 going into the season, going into the year as a whole. And right now we're on the outside looking in, which is not expected for either of them. Obviously, a ton of talented teams specifically up here in Group Ascend. JDG, IG specifically kind of breaking out with new look rosters after some underperformances last year. But now it's up to these kind of old guard in a way in BLG and Weibo to come back and show that they got a little bit of that juice themselves. As opening up across the map, Jungler starting on the bot side on 0 for 2 on Dredgeline so far as we've been focusing on the bot lane early on.
I'm enjoying watching Erha just step so close. He even takes an auto attack stun. At least that one's not particularly missable for On. If he ever hits one of those hooks though, there is some level of all-in potential. At the same time, Light and Erha should overall have push in this lane pretty much the entire time. And then on the rest of the lanes, right, you're kind of neutralizing that lane out for Xiaohu. You're kind of neutralizing the lane out top lane as well. Breathe can potentially go for some all-in plays later on, but it would be a little bit surprising. Right now, there's not really any gankable lanes right here for Weibo. And so, for now, it's going to either be dives or just standard League of Legends to start.
picturing some standard League of Legends here. That'd be nice after the crazy shenanigans we had in our first series of the day between LGD and EDG. Especially here in this game 1. You can see Knight poking out Xiaohu a little bit here in the mid lane, as we were expecting. It is Xiaohu piloting this Galio, even though the Rumble is being played by Bin up there. He's actually got himself off to a decent start to this one as well. We're waiting to see what the junglers do upon the completion of their first clears. Actually contest around at that Scuttle Crab. Well, they hit by both bot lanes as they kept it very even there.
Absolutely. Nobody's really going to have the push over the other when it comes to this potential skirmish. Wei, Tian, both going to be spotted out right here. And I wonder what BLG are going to look to do if they can't establish a lot of push down in this bottom side, because Wei has loved a bot lane dive recently. He has bot lane dived pretty much every single game, usually to great success, although it has been opening up Bin to be getting countered over in the top side, but without real push established down there, those bot lane dives not particularly going to be open, and it is just going to be the double scuttle here for Wei to kick things off.
Just a little bit of extra dueling threat here on this Xin early game. Allowed for Wei to pick up both of these Scuttle Crabs. Give himself a decent advantage to start this game off. Get some resets here from the mid laners, waiting for those first initial objectives to spawn. Still a couple minutes until we do get there. And now the question is, what do the bot lanes do? They decide to roam up here for the grub. Do they decide to just stay down here and try to play for the 2v2? I feel like both bot lanes are kind of content with staying here in this lane and try to play against each other. And right now it is Light and Erha getting the better of things in that double range match.
Yeah, so far they're going to have the push going through exactly what you need, right? You are relying so heavily on this bot lane to be able to get themselves ahead. As you said earlier on, Erha's been looking really good, has kind of revitalized this Weibo roster in the couple of games he's played. And this bot lane has been looking better and better. Still though, there is a lot of pressure on them in this game. Ambessa does some damage, Galio does some damage, same thing with the Skarner, but really they are reliant on this bot lane being far enough ahead that they can deal that main damage and hopefully get through some of these frontline carries. That's going to be particularly difficult when you've got the worked ground from Knight, the seismic shove to worry about, and then you've got something like the Crescent Guard from Wei, keeping you from doing a lot of that main damage.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be on Light to be a big player here in this game for Weibo. If he doesn't do a lot of damage, then not much for the rest of his team, as we are kind of alluding to going into this game. And he has gone for the lethal tempo build, which means we're going to see that on hit, which I think overall is good, considering there's not a lot of extra damage here on his team. It's also going to come down to what the setup looks like. He's going to be able to find angles. Tian going to find angles. Speaking of angles, you might see an initial engage here. Still waiting for those tangle barbs to come out. Instead on, going to go in with the dredge line. Wei's joined the party. 3v3 across the bottom side. Looks like Weibo are going to back off with that.
Very interesting that Erha just held on to the tangle barbs the entire time. Didn't really just want to go and throw that one out at any point. Perfectly happy to hold on, and you don't really lose out onto anything right there. The heal from Erha, the ignite from On, nothing too much that anybody's going to be missing. Still, you've got some good pressure going on in the bottom side of the map. The reset comes through from Tian. He's going to come back out onto the map now. We've got both Drake and these grubs up and available for whoever wants them. Wei currently down in the bottom side, and Tian heading up towards the top side of the map right now. He's looking towards those grubs.
There will just be that trade. And again, just in terms of the expectations even that we had for both of these teams coming in. Weibo more inconsistent and BLG kind of being those favorites. I mean, when these two teams played earlier on in the season, it really was BLG that had firm control of this. But all of a sudden, after some of the inconsistencies that we've been seeing from this BLG roster, we're not 100% sure if that's going to be the case, even though Weibo have been kind of inconsistent on their own. It feels like BLG after that loss, been on a recent slide. They're going to try to fight that here with the Weaver's Wall coming out from Knight. Erha, who's still in the Kaisa body, flashes away. So that'll be just one cooldown traded for a couple of others.
Not the end of the world to lose the flash on the Nico. It's a big bit of your engage gone, potentially, but you've also still got yourself a Skarner and a Galio, so there's other people who can take on that mantle for the next 5 minutes until that one is back available. And still, the difference is going to come through. Tian makes his way over towards those grubs, but Wei has now roamed his way up towards the top side of the map. He isn't necessarily going to be here to fight for any of these grubs. The first two fall very quickly. and the third will soon follow. So there's no response straight onto the Drake down in the bottom side of the map, despite the fact there hasn't really been any push down there bot lane. BLG's been able to establish their own push and could potentially have gone for that one right now. Instead, we're going to be perfectly happy to just keep farming up, and to be fair, he does have a decent little CS lead at the moment over Tian.
Yeah, kind of slowly building up. I didn't even really notice that that was happening, but now Tian kind of down in terms of the CS department, as that is where the gold lead currently kind of is in place for BLG. Everywhere else kind of relatively even, if not slightly Weibo favored. Is now Wei going to try to continue to add to his lead with the gank on to Breathe. Try to land that 3 talent strike because Lightning comes out, but there's no knock-up to be had, and so Breathe able to get away without burning his flash.
In fact, Breathe survives right there without having to lose out onto anything is huge. This Rumble was pretty much always going to be picked the second that Weibo had left that one up and didn't decide to first pick it. They decided to first pick themselves this Nico. We were very surprised by that. So what can Bin do on one of the highest priority champions in the entirety of the world right now, and especially in the LPL? This thing has something like an 83% pick ban. It's just constantly in every single game, and for good reason. It's so strong. In the laning phase, yes, but more once we get into these team fights. The ability to just drop an equalizer down into the backline completely splits up team fights for your opponents and makes it so, especially their mobile carries who are trying to get their damage down, just are running away from it and can't sit and hit.
We've seen that be so powerful throughout the decades of pro play, obviously, but especially here in the LPL, on a player like Bin, who, again, one of the more storied top laners at this point, even though he came up on a bit of a younger team, or as a younger player, 5 years ago at this point. So he's kind of made his way around. He's been around the block, is the best way to put it. Especially on this champion, where he's a name for himself. Dragon's going to get started up here by BLG. Wei, and the rest of his team should be able to collect this one with relative ease, as nobody else really wants to, and that's a good sign. Right now, if you are BLG, sorry, if you are, yeah, just get something on the board.
Exactly. BLG, their composition is far more standard overall than what Weibo have picked up for themselves, so they're going to be happy to just allow this early game to happen, pick up a couple of objectives here and there, don't fall behind in terms of too much gold, too much CS, and then you can play once you hit those item breakpoints. Specifically, you need a couple of items onto the Rumble. The Leandry is going to be such a big spike for that once you put those equalizers down. Same sort of thing for Elk. He's got himself this poke Varus build, which needs a couple of those lethality items through to really start hitting, and at that point, the poke that you've got between the potential of an equalizer and then whatever you've got between Talia and Varus is going to be very strong and make it pretty tricky for Weibo to actually step up to these team fights.
They're just going to need, like, the perfect setup every single time for things to potentially go their way, right? Like, you need all the ultimates kind of stacked on top of each other. Nico onto Galio with Skarner knocking up a couple, or picking up a couple as well. And then Light has to do a lot of work in his own right. You can see it might take him a while to get there. He actually went for the static shift first because there's not a lot of damage. There's also not a ton of wave clear on this Weibo Gaming roster, so Light's going to be a big reason, or a big part of that wave clear once the mid lane really starts to become a bigger priority for both the bot lanes, as you're seeing it right now on the minimap.
And also, very short range composition overall for Weibo, which means taking towers is going to be pretty tricky for them. You said wave clear for defending them, but pushing on top, you're going to have to win team fights or get some clever map macro going on to find open objectives to try to push towards. For the minute, multiple members of both teams hovering around towards this grub pit. 13 seconds until those are going to spawn. You at least know right here that as Weibo something is up, and On is stood very much on a ward.
He has no idea.
Now he knows. There we go. He's like, huh, why has nobody walked straight into my hook?
I truly hope that it was on cooldown. He didn't just remember. Otherwise, we could waste a lot of time, brother.
Yep, potentially. But the grubs do now spawn. BLG going to be able to head straight over towards those ones. Can there be any potential steal? Weibo would love to be able to grab even one of them right now.
Or will it just be an even trade? They're setting up Era as a scout right now to start things out. Well, 2 of the grubs have been secured, but it looks like BLG actually okay with giving up all of them. Or here comes Hero's entrance in from Xiaohu. It knocks up 2 Wei with a crescent guard already, though it knocks a bunch of people away. He flashes down with the Impale goes on a 2. Come out with the pop blossom. That's first blood going over to Weibo Gaming. They get themselves a second with Bin dropping. But now, Elk's able to free fire. Knight's coming in with the teleport as well. The big carries for BLG trying to do some work to come back here in this team fight. Breathe very low. He flashes away here from the continued Q. And the piercing arrows dodged as well. On the other side of things, it's going to be on in trouble as Tian chases him down. The rock doesn't connect, but the Prey Seeker will. 3-1 in favor of Weibo.
Oh, that full fight from Weibo was a complete mess, but they just decide, hey, we can go in. They managed to grab themselves that final grub. Not quite. Now they're going to be able to grab themselves that final grub and then just go flying in. It all starts with that public execution for Breathe. I really hope that we get to see a replay of that fight because it's the wombo combo we were hoping for at 13 minutes into the game. So before any of the real item breakpoints come through, before you actually deal that much damage, and that's the real issue that you run into as Weibo. There's multiple moments in that fight where they kind of run out of damage and have to turn around, run away, wait for some cooldowns to reapply. Here we go. So, initial, really well played to be able to just grab up an opponent right there with that public execution. It's very easy to miss that straight up, straight into the Galio ulti and straight into the Pop Blossom right here out of Erha. The first 2 kills are easy enough, but it's at this point where you've kind of blown everything and you are running a little bit out of damage. Elk is dealing some decent damage. Knight nearly takes Breathe out as well, but because you managed to find that initial bit of engage, take out the top and jungle of your opponents, well, there isn't really too much more to do. That was a very nice snipe to cap off the fight.
So, it's 1 extra grub going over to Weibo, plus that team fight that we just watched, obviously. 2 of those 3 kills. Going over to Light on this Kaisa, that's big because of what we have already said. Weibo's composition desperately needs Light to get ahead.
Yeah.
They won't have any chance of winning this one. As for BLG, Elk gets a couple of kills, or Elk gets a kill. It's not bad, but you wish it was a little bit more than that because they got so close to actually turning that one around.
Yeah, absolutely. They were so nearly there. And this is a team composition that also doesn't particularly spike at that point. Wei was in a strong spot, but just got 1 tapped to begin the fight off. On actually jumped straight over the wall to get Tian.
They just immediately knew it was Erha.
To get Erha
and that means that Wei will take him down. So the support here for Weibo Gaming out of the picture here. Light going a little bit too forward as well. Jump straight into the audacious charge of Wei.
Oh!
3-man impale from Tian. Combined with the public execution. And that's just going to wipe BLG off the face of the map. Wei stuck in a 1v4 to try to pick up 1 kill in response, but will not be able to find it. A double kill in for Light. And Weibo with 2 massive skirmishes in a row.
Hey, you're going to be more than happy with just picking up that kill onto Erha. And despite the fact that, yeah, he dies, everything after that goes Weibo's way. We talked about it, right? This is a composition that really needed to get ahead early, needed the damage to be able to come through, otherwise it just does not work out. In this situation, yeah, on flashing over the wall as well means that there's no way to get back out of this one. There's no way to get away from the impale that comes on through. And this is gorgeous right here from Tian. Exactly what we have been asking for from these scans. Flash, impale, 3 members dragged in. Bin and Wei, they recognize that there's really no way they should be stepping up here. Unfortunately, Wei does also get caught on the backside of this fight. That means that the Drake is 100% going to go over to Weibo. And BLG's jungle struggles continue.
Yeah, just a little bit over-aggressive there. It looked like originally a nice pick, but they saw Tian on a ward. They knew that reinforcements would have been on the way. Speaking of reinforcements, now Bin could be in some trouble here in the mid lane. Gets hit up by the Tango Barb, just gets 1 shot before he can do anything here. Already 8-2 in terms of kill score towards Weibo Gaming. It looks like BLG will get 1 back as Tian does fall, shut down, going the way of Elk. But right now, Weibo in massive control of this game. They're up 3,000 gold. They have 5 kills on Light and are pushing on both side lanes at the same time.
Exactly, and because of that, it feels like nobody from VLG knows exactly where to go. With the enemy jungler down, you'd think maybe they're going to be able to head up towards the top side of the map and grab that Rift Herald, but just not going to be the case at the moment. This is a composition from BLG that spikes pretty hard at this 2-item point, but that's the point at which Weibo Gaming are absolutely online. And right now, with them in this sort of advantage, 3,000 gold in the lead, BLG, they're just behind the curve.
And what can they do to potentially get themselves out of this one? I feel like for BLG, their composition very skirmish heavy, especially with this lethality Varus, who does have 2 of the 3 kills that BLG have, but still overall behind in this game. They're going to need to keep fighting around neutral objectives, but I just don't know if they win at this point, with the gold lead being so much in favor of Weibo.
Absolutely, they need to find ways to get a couple of these shutdown, very big shutdown right now, sat on top of a light. If you can pick that one up for yourselves, it is going to be a big swing in terms of the gold. Being down 3,000 at just 17 minutes into the game, not going to be ideal. The Herald started up right here by BLG, but in these straight up 5v5 team fights, it's not been treating them so well at the moment. They do at least have Darkness to play around. Maybe as Weibo, you just concede this one. You're not particularly worried about giving over this Herald.
They are. Teleport comes in. It's going to be Xiaohu joining the fight. Immediately they try to turn their attention towards Tian as he's the one in most danger of a steal. Arrow's Pop Blossom only finds one with the public execution from Breathe. It finds a priority target, and Elk's already out of the picture. Now it's Wei getting knocked into the wall by the Ixtal's impact. A second kill finds the way of light. And now it's the rest of BLG on the run. The Herald not even going in favor of BLG at the end of the day. It's Weibo picking up that and 2 more kills. Knight trying to save something here by using the Weaver's Wall to get on over here, but the priority still remains much on Weibo's side.
Very much so, and with this Rift Herald available, the 4 grubs to this mid lane tower takes a ton of damage. Not quite going to go down on this initial push. Knight's wave clear is decent enough for that, but it's still very little going back over to BLG. Weibo are in complete and utter control of this game, and that was actually a couple of different botched engages out of Weibo. You're flashing forwards as Erha just to be able to land the Pop Blossom onto one member. Xiaohu doesn't manage to get into the backline until he has somebody there for the ulti. Tian attempts the Impale here, but watch what happens, right? He goes for the Impale now, only would have landed onto one member anyway, but immediately gets stunned back, isn't able to pull that through. It's Breathe who actually engages this fight and gives the in for the rest of his team. Brilliant attempt right there with the public execution, landing that one now multiple times without the champion he's aiming for already stunned up. Very impressive, something we actually don't see that much from other Ambessas across this league.
And, you know, maybe this is just like a small sample size thing here, Bloxer, but I feel like you're already seeing some of the differences between being in Group Nirvana and Group Ascend. Like some of those ultimates from Nio, from some of the different players here, Sasa, not connecting, that are now hitting for Breathe and Tian pretty easily.
And unfortunately, in this sort of game where BLG have got themselves on, who's hopefully that tanky frontline, and gets the flash out of Elk right there. Breathe on point with these, and Wei hopefully strong enough to be able to go in and be a bit of that front line too. If that's not the case, if Wei isn't healing enough once he's in and amongst members, don't take that. What? Huh?
Flashes forward, they're looking for Erha. Depth charge onto Breathe. The Chain of Corruption has come out. Era is very low. Wei dashing forward again, but there's no reinforcement for the rest of BLG. Bin is just way too late. He gets stunned in the wall with the Ixtal's impact, and now he's isolated. It's a double kill in for Breathe. Taunt from Xiaohu lands on a 2. BLG are just going in one by one and getting annihilated by Weibo. Already a 4 for 1 as only Era has fallen. The mid lane tier 1 will drop, and Weibo dominating this first game.
They're going to be able to pull back and grab themselves this Drake as well. Hextech Drake, such a strong one to be able to grab as an individual or as a soul. And Weibo, complete and utter control of this game. Every single fight, especially ones that BLG are attempting to engage, just do not work out. Yes, this is a bit of a risky composition if you begin to fall behind from Weibo, but from ahead, where your tanks are still dealing a ton of damage, well, you're going to be more than happy with this one so far. Weibo, brilliant early game. We're only 21 minutes into this game, but they are still ahead by 6,000 gold, a couple grubs, and they've got the Drake lead too. Let's see what happens with this one. I was calling for not to go in, because it felt like such an odd situation to go all in right here, especially onto who you're attacking here. Yeah, this is Erha. This is the support. Yes, the Nico's a big part of your engage, does some decent damage with Pop Blossom, but you don't really want to be all-inning onto him. And this is really well played from Weibo. They split up the fight, managed to get a couple of members out by themselves. Erha didn't even need to die, and that one just decided to go and get involved for one last hurrah. And the fact that Knight then has to flash at the end of this one, that's another big cooldown off the board.
Have you seen that meme of like the 100 people against the gorilla and like who would win? And people are saying like people are going to go in one by one. That's what it feels like BLG are doing. They're sending one by one, people after person, to try to go in and fight this indomitable force, and they're losing, obviously, because they're not going together as a team. On going way too far forward, then Wei just decided to and bin next target, and then everybody just kind of dies. And so, even though Weibo are ahead, part of me is like saying that Weibo's doing good, but the other part of me is wondering why BLG are looking for these sorts of engages, and now Wei's gonna get caught out again! He gets taunted up by Xiaohu and taken down. That is sure to be the Otacon, if not more, if Weibo don't continue to overextend. Light gets hit up by the depth charge, flashes straight into the hook of On. Pyrotechnics comes out, but the re-engage and the damage is just too big on Weibo's side. Breeze picking up a solo kill onto Elk, and now Tian dashing forward and finding another knock up here on up in. Everybody on BLG's continuing to drop. Knight the lone survivor here, but he's stuck underneath his inhibitor tower as Weibo are still 5 strong.
Yeah, they've got a wave pushing in this top lane as well, so this top lane tier 2 tower very likely to fall right here. They don't even have the ability to peel back to go get the Baron because it isn't up for another 2 minutes. Instead, just going to be the Atachan, the prize right here for Weibo on top of the kills they were able to grab. And why BLG is a great question, Graves. It's the question a lot of people have been asking themselves in the LPL this split. BLG just making poor decision after poor decision in this game. They're so far behind at this point, I don't even know if there's any good decisions left available to them. Multiple engages just going wrong. And it's another situation, right, where I'm looking at the Gallo here from Xiaohu, and I'm just so happy with it. It feels like the thing that's really tied this whole composition together, because anytime somebody gets caught out, either Light or Erha, or sometimes even Breathe, well, immediately you get that hero's entrance come on down from Xiaohu, and the person survives, a couple people are knocked up too, and you can just play the fight through from there. It's a really well-executed look on this very aggressive composition from Weibo.
You know, credit to Weibo. They got exactly what they wanted. They have their front line ahead. Specifically, they have Light 9, 0, and 8 now on this Kai'Sa. 3 full items. He's going to be able to do so much for the remainder of this game. As BLG, I mean, you just got to wonder what is going on with them right now. They dropped the series to FPX yesterday. Now we're down 14 kills, 8,000 gold here in game number 1 to Weibo, a team that they were able to beat rather handily in the playoffs just a couple of months ago. So now the question is, like, not only just for this remainder of this series, but what could happen for this team in the second round robin as a whole?
Yeah.
I know there were some potential questions about roster moves for this squad.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that has to come through. This team just does not look good at all right now.
No, they need a shake-up somewhere, whether it's just through strategy or through moving personnel around. Something has to change. BLG, they've got higher aspirations than being middle of the pack here in the LPL. Knight, don't step up here, has to insta-flash away. That's a big cooldown to now be away. Wei also taking massive damage. Here goes Tian.
Yeah, they have been reached Otacon here, so they could go very aggressive without much risk at all. Tian, very low HP, but already Light picked up that first kill onto On. Already 1 revive here, but here comes the killer instinct forward from Light. Picks himself up a double kill, and potentially looking for more. The blast cone out will send everybody on Weibo back out to safety, and they will be able to head back to base after picking up 2 kills for free.
Okay, Erha also going to be able to survive. It's a bit of an aggressive play there. BLG stepping up into their jungle, but it's no longer theirs to walk through uncontested. Weibo just complete control in this game right now. And the other thing I would really like to call out for making this interesting composition work is the build path that we're seeing right here out of Breathe. Usually, you see the Eclipse on the Ambessa, which gives you some extra survivability, but not quite as much damage. No, this is full aggression right here. Shojin, Youmuu's, and then the Edge of Night has just been completed for that extra little bit of survivability, but also a ton of damage too. And I think this is what you really needed. You needed threat from another angle, because it otherwise was very much just going to be the Kai'Sa. Light has played this one out excellent, but so has Breathe. He's been on point with these ultis every time. He's either landing it or he's getting a flash out of his opponents.
I don't know if you see the Cyclosword as part of this build as well, but it's like...
Are we going to get there?
Maybe next item. Maybe that's 4th here. But, I mean, it's 20 to 4. Part of me is like, maybe he just decided to build lethality because he realized the game was over. I don't know.
He was going towards this pretty early on, although that would be funny too, to be like, yeah, I don't need extra survivability. I mean, you're in a composition, right, where you've got yourself a Skarner and a Galio. You don't have to be the survivability option. You don't need to be the tank here. You can go and be a main damage threat. 4-0-10, an incredibly impressive performance at this point. Baron has now finally joined us on the Rift. BLG once again stepping up, but they need to be careful. They really don't own this jungle at the moment. And Weibo, they can either start this one up and finish it, or they can peel off and go look for a fight. They've been loving the team fight so far.
Hey, you're up 9,000 gold. Might as well just try to force a fight, force BLG to come towards you, because it's going to go relatively well. You don't just completely screw things up. Baron's at half HP. Tian just got to make sure he lands that final smite, or at least push way away from the pit to make sure there's no chance at a steal. The fight's going to begin here immediately before the Baron gets really taken low. Immediately, Bin is taken down. Wei pops the Crescent Guard. Light's very low HP, but the Pop Blossom from Era doing a lot of work. Knight finally gets one back. This could be BLG's opportunity here. The Impale lands onto just one, and Weibo still going to take control here of this team fight. Elk going to just be continuously caught out, taken down here by Light. Only Knight surviving. He'll pick up a 1K shutdown, but that's all he will get as an ace gets picked up for Weibo Gaming once again.
The death timers are getting pretty long at this point, but I don't think the push is going to come through. The main damage threats have gone down right here for Weibo. It was a slightly better fight for BLG overall, but at this point they're so far behind, the wallet diff beginning to come through. They're going to lose a ton more towers for this one. At least they stop the Baron for now. 30 seconds though until Knight's back up and available. You can just respawn here as Weibo, run straight on over to this Baron and do it all again.
Taking a look at this one here, it seemed like the goal for Weibo was to start the fight before there was any risk of steal. But you see here, Light forced to kind of ult in a really awkward position.
Yeah.
And burn down really quickly.
He really does, and without Light actually to sit and deal the damage, there is decent damage right here, but nowhere near as much as you need. Knight, again, with that crucial seismic shove the second that the Impale came through from Tian, otherwise that would have been a straight-up kill. And Light thinks he's about to insta-die, so pops the golden a little bit too early, allows Knight to be able to pick that one up. He called it there. 1,000 gold shutdown, that is a lot back over. We jump out of the replay straight into some more brawling happening. This has been an incredibly action-packed game.
Action-packed, but only going one way, really, right now, is Weibo Gaming. The ones fully in control. The gold lead nearly 10,000 here at the 30-minute mark of this game. 4 full items for Light. He's gone for an AP-oriented build with the Zanyas and the Nashor's dude now in his inventory. Looking for a Hex Flash onto Erha. Not going to find it. And here comes Tian with the Ixtal's Impact. Does not find a target, as right now it is just Weibo trying to generate control around this top side, around the Baron pit, because they know that if they pick this one up with relative ease, should be a quick march into the base to try to end this game 1.
So far, so good for Weibo, although, they need to be careful, can't afford a steal coming through from Wei. This is the kind of composition for BLG that can come back for a deficit. They are not completely down and out in this one. It's just going to be very, very risky for now. Weibo, they're just going to get themselves control around the pit, potentially go for a couple of resets, buy a couple more items right here, a few more components at least for Erha. Now, back out onto the rest of the map they go. Dragon, 1 minute away, and that will be Soul if you could pick it up right here for Weibo. Hextech as well would be a great Soul for this heavy fighting composition. The extra souls, the extra damage would be really nice.
They're in a good position to get there if they don't want to just start a fight around the Baron beforehand. Looks like Weibo still are hesitant, and now for BLG, the goal is to try to find a pick onto somebody. Whether it's Breathe or Xiaohu, if you can get a big shutdown onto one of your main carries, maybe that is the smallest step towards a potential comeback or a potential stalling out of this game. But it looks like Weibo, instead of trying to risk an objective as big and strong as the Baron, are going to just try to continue to claim this soul as they shift their attention down to the bottom side of the map instead.
Very tense at the moment. Once again, constantly sending these little clones forwards, spotting out where the members of BLG are. We'll see if there's going to be any big engagers coming through right now. The Dragon has now spawned. This is practically going to be do or die here for BLG.
Yeah, they're going to have to find the dream fight that they have yet to open up with. On really gets caught out here by a bit of a death rush. no vision in this area of the map right now for BLG. They're going to have to go in blind. Initially finding the hook on a Xiaohu, but On could be in some trouble afterwards. Breathe on the flank. Looking maybe for the public execution, but BLG are stacked up as 5 and making sure that nobody can go and get singled out. Era gonna go forward to Pop Blossom. The Dragon is secured by Tian. That's a Hextech Soul going over to Weibo. They already have taken down Wei, and now could be looking for more. On still very low on HP. The Excel's impact, finding Knight. There's the hero's entrance to try to respond here. Knight will go down. Light finds the kill. Bin the next to follow. Already 3 kills picked up, make it 4. And Elk may soon to be the final nail in the coffin here for Bilibili Gaming. He gets hit up by the Tangle Barbs. Light will claim the kill and go golden for a little bit extra swag. 30-6 is the scoreline right now for Weibo Gaming as they'll push right down mid and try to take control of game number 1.
This is going to be a clean ace right here for Weibo. They've just been better in the team fights. They've been better overall than BLG. And with 20 seconds until anybody with real wave clear is back up and available, this will be game number 1. Weibo, they want to move beyond being even right now. They want to take control of that 5th spot right now in Group Ascent. They want to send BLG down.
Well, but Haddock and the KDAs, one more kill over to Tian. And there it is, 31-6, your kill score, as Weibo just have a complete domination, obliteration of Bilibili Gaming to start off our best of 3.
Are BLG broken?
Looks like it. I'm not going to lie.
I'm not going to say that they're not going to win the next game. They have loved a 2-1. So have Weibo, to be fair. They have also loved sending games to a game number 3. But something in BLG just isn't working. This is the sort of composition that you're playing up against where you cannot afford to give the Kai'Sa a bunch of kills early because it is the main damage source. And Light was basically untouched. He died once up in the top side of the map. Other than that, was able to just play this one through. Yeah, he was going for a slightly more AP build, so you're able to build the Zhonyas. But the Zhonyas didn't come through until way later on. BLG just, despite the fact they had a pretty good composition with a ton of those highest priority picks, just did nothing with it.
I'm very surprised. I mean, I knew they just came off a loss to FPX. I felt like that would have meant that BLG were going to regroup and come together as like a much stronger unit than they were when they were stumbling through the end of this first round robin. I thought they'd want to end things out on a high note, and they'd come out looking like the team that we were expecting to be the LPL champions coming into 2025. But that definitely is not the case. And all of a sudden, we could be looking at BLG ending this first round robin in Group Ascend with a losing record. And that was not something any of us would have predicted entering split number 2.
No, BLG enter into this second split with some questions, right? We were all expecting them to sort of pick up where they left off during their last year, during 2024, where they win the LPL title twice. They go to World Finals, just don't quite about manage to win it all. Easily look like the best or second best team in the entire world. Same roster, nothing changes. Wonderful, let's go again. And then they get smacked around by Thunder Talk? By a Thunder Talk with a squad that, you know, was interesting, but not necessarily full of players we would have really been expecting. Then they don't even make it into the grand finals. They have to watch Top go to an international. And now in split number 2, it looks like they're faltering even worse. There are many problems with this team. The main one everybody's looking at is the jungle, but I don't just think it's a big jungle issue. It's the whole map is faltering.
You know, maybe you could say it starts with the jungle, but it's not like Bin did much in this game. It's not like Knight did anything memorable at all. I mean, even Elk and On, which were kind of the shining lights of the squad, even in some of their losing moments, didn't really do much at all. But when you have a normal looking gold graph here in the LPL, you know that things kind of went out of control quickly for your opposition, and so this is something. This is a goal graph maybe that we would have expected to see from like Weibo going up against an FPX or WE going into this group ascension, not against BLG.
No.
And that's exactly what has happened here. As we take a look at some of these highlights, it's again just kind of a disjointed effort overall from our 2024 champions.
Exactly. The way that BLG play is very disjointed. You're absolutely right to use that word. But also, they're not respecting the composition that they're playing into currently. You can't afford to get too close to this composition because the second that you do, there's a Galio and there's a Skarner. They are just going to pull you in. On goes flying in here to try to get a pick onto Erha, and it just does not work out for the squad as one would expect, blowing everything onto a support. I think something that's also incredibly emblematic of things going wrong is that now Bin has gotten this Rumble, this top tier top laner that is banned pretty much in every single game to every single top laner. He's now gotten that 2 series in a row and lost both times on this champion. That is a massive problem when you can't win even on those best in class picks.
I'm very interested to see what BLG look like going into game 2. Are they just going to roll over and kind of say it's a go next round robin angle? Just like make sure we are ready for the second half? Or are we going to try to fight back a little bit here, BLG? Because that is not an acceptable performance here to wrap up your first round robin, to wrap up our day here on LPL English. Just really uncharacteristic play, although at this point it's becoming characteristic because, of course, they didn't look very good yesterday against FPX either.
No. It's now a second series in a row where, oh boy. Now, yesterday, in that matchup versus FPX, game 1, they got kind of smacked around. Game number 2, they came up to such a monumental lead within the first 3 minutes that there was literally nothing FPX could do. It was nearly quicker for them to have just FF'd at 15 and gone again into game number 3. So BLG, if the only way they're able to beat these teams around them in the standings is by finding that immediate big play, maybe they just have to index into that harder. This was a composition that needed a couple of items to really scale up, and we didn't really see too much aggression out of way. Maybe they just need to fully play for the early game and see, hey, if we can get a massive lead, maybe we make it work. Maybe they need something like the Lucian Nami.
You're asking them to flip the game level 1.
Yeah.
to try to get them some way back in this game.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's a sad state of affairs when we're asking for that, isn't it?
Yeah, for BLG, who's supposed to be